Alaikum. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Welcome on behalf of Shaykh Fadhlalla Haeri Foundation. I am delighted to welcome you all to the second conversation between Shaykh Fadhlalla Haeri and Syed Haider Mehdi, inspired by his book Sufi Encounters, Sharing the Wisdom of the Enlightened Sufis. It's a spiritual memoir written by Shaykh Fadhlalla and his wife Muneera of his meetings with living Sufis and the resting places of deceased ones. Here is the book. I hope you all can see it. And inshallah, it's been written for all who are interested in exploring non-duality, the nature of consciousness, and the mystical path. This is an unparalleled guide to Sufism as it is practiced around the world today. In any case, for the benefit of those joining us in this space for the very first time, Shaykh Fadhlalla Haeri is a teacher of spiritual seekers and specializes in how to navigate the journey to awakening. He charts out the links between the Quranic revelation and how the self relates to the soul, and how mankind is linked with the divine, and how consciousness can be groomed. Grounded in the wellspring of what he calls Islam original, his teachings offer a link between Eastern and Western approaches to spirituality. He's a prolific author of more than 40 books relating to the universal principles of Islam, the Quran, and its core purpose of enlightenment. Haider Mehdi joins us from Toronto, a former officer in the Pakistani Army. Haider has been a teacher, a trainer, and currently blogs as a political commentator on Pakistani affairs and contributes op-eds in the Pakistani press. Though this session is live, the questions are Haider's to ask. If you have any questions arising from this session about these conversations on Sufi Encounters, which you would like to put to Shaykh Fadhlalla, please send them in via email, as we intend to organize another session where they can be answered. And that email is info@sfhfoundation.com. Welcome to you both, and handing over to you now, Haider Mehdi.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. Thank you very much, Mona. Very kind of you. Sheikhna, we had a wonderful conversation last time. And Mona just mentioned about this book being a wonderful insight into the spiritual journey and the true original Islam and the Muhammadi path. Just starting from where we left off last time, Sufism has its adherents and, of course, has had its criticisms. And I did ask you this question last time, and I would request you to dwell on it a little more, that there is a view that Sufism is a deviation from original Islam, but actually, in my view, and having read your book and the Quranic message, and all those who understand, know that this is really the true original Islam, which got distorted very soon after the Prophet, and got back into dynastic rule, tribalism, etc. And neither is it Shia or Sunni or any other maslak. It is, the three great Imams, Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, and Imam Shafi, were considered Sufis at their time. You've quoted them extensively, certainly Imam Shafi in the book. So why is there such a misperception about the Sufi path in certain elements of the Muslim world?
Human beings originate from a zone that we cannot understand or define. You call it heavenly, you call it divine, you call it any other name. Life in us emanates from a mysterious cosmic source, which we call the life giver, or God, or Allah, or whatever. most human beings nowadays accept that there is so much about our origin or what enables us to be alive we don't know. Then there is the other side in us through a mind, a clear mind, a reflective mind, and what we have inherited from many, many, many generations, which have evolved higher and higher in consciousness to being human, activated by something that is divine. So the whole story is wrapped up in a mystery. And Islam is one of numerous revelations that have come over thousands of years from the unseen to activate, energize, and lift up the physical material scene.
Wow.
So it is not the one and only, nor is it unique. It is hundreds of attempts where the light of lights touches people and their culture and their way of life in order to lift it up higher towards the infinite, boundless, ever-present light of lights, the divine. So this is what Islam is. Therefore, to really live it and be it, you have to first intellectually, mentally test it, understand it, absorb it, change your behavior, your conduct, be aware of your awareness, and on and on and on, until you are no longer aware of what you're doing, what you're not doing, who is what. You're spontaneously in a state where there is self-correctiveness, self-check, self-awareness. And then you are present in the moment. Now, Islam is a culmination of maybe 3,000-4,000 of years of a geographical area, different cultures that have come together in that area, which is fairly easy to live in and survive. If you like the Mediterranean basin, to where is now Mesopotamia or Iraq or whatever, that these people did not have to struggle all the time to survive. There were food, there were things, climate was easy, there was water, there were plants, there were nuts, and there were, anyway. So it was, if you like, the summation of the Abrahamic teachings, whose origin and foundation was based on sound. Expressing a reality that is the source of all other tangible, visible realities. So this is what real Quranic revelation or Islam is. Now, once any human being hears something that is new, it is natural for us to take what we are accustomed to, familiar with, usable, and leave the rest. And soon after that, doubts may set in. Other questions may come in, and on and on and on. The nature of the mind is to separate, to see what is appropriate, what is not, what is good, what is bad, what is attractive, what is repulsive. So once it touches a human being, this light bifurcates into that which can be on the human side acceptable or ignored and rejected or in fact despised. So this is what these revelations are. It says there is only the one, everything has emerged from the same one who is with you wherever you are, whoever you are. Now, if you simply use it from a point of view, of rational point of view, or if you like, sensible point of view, it makes some sense and it makes a lot of also nonsense. You can't understand it unless you allow your heart, which is the higher parts, the highest part of your, if you like, consciousness, to evaluate it. Then you find, no, it is true. I am a human being, evolved from millions of years from being a living, the tiniest of living entities, to then all of the other animals, all of the other dinosaurs, and on, to the Adamic being, which may have occurred maybe 50, 100, 200,000 years ago, with the consciousness of consciousness of consciousness. So once you have this basic, if you like, understanding of the sketch of life, then you find you, I, he, and she who want the best for yourself. You find you're more and more and more trying to be in unison with your soul, not with the self. The self is a reflection, an image of your soul or spirit or your higher self. So it's for that reason, Islam can only be truly lived by those who believe in it, take it on unquestionably, and live it, and then they find this is the only way to be. Otherwise, it becomes argumental, it becomes discourse, it becomes this way or that way. Are you with us or against us? The duality which we all live by. You can't deny duality. Anything we experience is within the zone of dualities. But duality emanates from unity and returns back to unity. So therefore, any prophetic revelation, soon after it is said, becomes also subject to the mental discourse and division. That's why Buddha and all of the great ones said, don't follow me. Don't try to mimic me, because everybody else will try to do the same and everybody claims they have it. Everybody has been touched by truth. Nobody can say, I am exclusive, I am the only one who have the truth. Truth has all. So the divine light, with all its millions of attributes and sublights, encompasses all of the universes. So that's what it is. Now, you and I also are within a very small sliver of a universe.
Yes.
We have the physical part to take care of, mental part, chemical part, emotional part, and a spiritual part, which gives us the ultimate, if you like, inner joy, certainty, contentment. So naturally, like any other strange, higher, if you like, touch of consciousness, it gets divided by interpretation. So Sufis and others, there were so many other interpretations trying to make sense out of it. So if it was not the Sufi, there would be many others. There had been already so many divisions. The so-called madhabs are an explanation or a demonstration of that. People in one particular, part of the world get used to a certain method of connecting, relating, living, so that becomes their standard. And they're right. But you can't make it exclusive. There are many, many others who do the same thing. But if you are part of that tribe, then you will take sides. Say, no, we are not of this side of the tribe, we are of that. We have to take sides, because you have two sides, left and right. It's endless. And this is all right for the animal side. But once you realize that's not enough, you want to transcend that limited consciousness to a higher level of consciousness, which is within you, then you calm the other side, keep quiet now, rest, you have had reasonable food, reasonable companionship, now keep quiet. فَإِذَا فَرَغْتَ فَانصَبْ. When you have done your worldly needs and duties, now point out to that which is everywhere at all times, and yet you cannot catch it at any time. It's natural.
Sheikh, you make it sound so wonderfully beautiful and simple, because really, you mentioned duality and you mentioned the ambivalence in us, and in your book, you very clearly say that human nature is both earthly and heavenly, and this is what you said. And you go on to say that if the two sides are not addressed and nurtured, then the imbalance will either produce secular robots and functionaries of fundamentalism and extremism, which we see a lot of nowadays. But in Islam, on the other hand, encourages the rise of consciousness through intellect, and as well as spiritual practices that awaken one to the divine nature of the soul. I think the question really behind this is, how does one awaken the divine nature of the soul? I know we're coming with different versions of the same question, but there's been a lot of feedback from our previous one to seek guidance from you on how does one become the watcher? How does one become be in the moment? How does become one become aware? How does one awaken the divine light within them?
The Quran says your purpose on this earth is to come out from darknesses to light. Several ayahs clearly describe this is the purpose of human life. And God's mercy and God's grace, لِيُخْرِجُكُم مِّنَ الظُّلُمَاتِ إِلَى النُّورِ. So He takes you out from different levels of darknesses to the light. So light is there. The higher consciousness is there. Divine consciousness is there. But I am caught into the shadows, which I became familiar with, and the darknesses. That's all what it is. And suffering is the biggest, if you like, incentive to get out of it. Because we are designed not wanting to suffer. We're designed wanting to be inwardly content, secure, and happy. So the reason if I am unhappy is because I've deviated from the original path of light, and so on and so forth. So it's already done. The rest we have to follow that simple sketch or a map. And you find everything is clear. Why did you go there? I didn't know. I was curious. Well, curiosity. Why were you curious? For what? Your duty is to be present in the moment and be accountable and be a steward on earth. This is the rise of the Adamic consciousness. You have to be responsible, accountable, and stop being so abusive and so wasteful as we have been. You know, all these religions and so on seem to have served their purpose, but if you look at it from a different angle, you find, oh, they have caused a lot of warfare, they've got more diversity, more differences. All right, now what about it? The whole world is choking from our abuse, whether it is atmospheric or whether it is all of the, you know, millions and millions of tons of materials, like they do not disintegrate, or of the plastics. We are all united, the whole world. We don't want the children or grandchildren to asphyxiated from all the rubbish we have created in the name of civilization and comfort and ease. Accountability. Why so much packaging? Why so much clothing? Why so much? Take what is needed so that you are at the edge between the visible and the invisible. So you acknowledge the visible and deal with it humanly, and bask in the joy of the infinitude of the light of lights, which is within your own heart and gives you life. This is what it is. So we're coming back to it. The whole world is not much closer now towards that unifying factor, understanding we are essentially the same, wanting the same than we were 50 years ago, certainly far more than where we were 200 years ago, and on and on and on. We realize there is a certain unifying field of humanity. We want to know that something in me or my source or my essence is not subject to comings and goings and changes, and it is the most reliable companion I have, and it is really is my soul mate, and is my own soul. So this is due to suffering, collective suffering. All of us now are being afflicted by our excessive, if you like, wastage and abuse. So for that we celebrate, but equally we have to weep for our, not being, in a way, attentive enough all these hundreds and thousands of years and so on. But essentially, if you have faith and trust, and you can't live without faith or trust, you will believe that, you will come to know that, you will experience that Allah is in charge. We are all under that control.
Sheikh, thank you. Sheikh, we've even last time we talked a bit about suffering, and you've mentioned this suffering, this collective suffering, as well as the individual suffering that we suffer. And last time I did ask you this question about the fact that, on the path to enlightenment, a lot of the enlightened people like yourself as well, have undergone deep pain and suffering. And I think the question that ordinary mortals like us have to deal with is that, um, what about the pain and suffering that is inflicted on us by the external environment, by other people? Does one's inner trust and faith and honesty, and as you mentioned last time, the mindfulness or the mindlessness, are they sufficient to manage these influences of the many destructive forces of the external environment that impact on us and make us miserable, despondent, um, and over which we have no control?
Like everything else we experience, there are limits to it. A certain amount of suffering with a certain understanding, in other words, having been given a certain map or a sketch as to what is life about and why, how does pleasure and pain arise. If I have that with me, if I have that transparency and I put it on the event, then I realize that it's not for my sake, it's for other people to wake up, for other abusive creatures simply motivated by money making and so on to begin to realize that no, they are causing other people harm. The Quran has a beautiful ayah in this respect. It says, and be most weary of a situation that doesn't only affect the people who are inflicting it, it affects the whole world. If I make a fire here in the veld and so on, and I'm not careful and there is wind, everybody else will be burnt. So you have to be careful about other people's abusiveness and excesses and wildness and inconsideration. And this is a cause for all of us human beings to be weary of and start pointing fingers and start calling others to account. But if I am myself not constantly referring to my zone, if you like, of referencing or calibration or accountability, then I have very low credibility in simply pointing out fingers to others who are abusive. I too am abusive. Who gave me the right to take all this air and oxygen and water and all? Where did it come from? It's in order to survive. Why survive? In order to begin to understand how things are. Why is that? In order to choose. Why is that? In order to be at a point where I am between humanity and divinity, the short journey back to the infinite unknown. But this time, the soul has experienced all of the dualities in this life. So we are work in progress. You put that in perspective, you find a few thousands of years of inconsequence. Human beings who were very, very unaware or very low in their, if you like, capacity or exercise or experience of consciousness. Now look at the whole world. We're conscious. It's magnificent. It's moving very rapidly towards realizing that in every heart there is an eternal light which is divine and has within it the knowledge of everything. If I refer to it, it will reveal to me. But I am distracted by so many other things, so I can't refer to it. I'm all the time concerned about wealth, about fear, about safety, security, money. So I won't be able to refer, take, if you like, a measure or to take reference from that light. So I am at fault. I have to refine this amazing, most, if you like, complicated instrument in existence, which is my own universe, which is my body, my physical, mental, chemical. From now on, I think we'll all be more and more concerned about mental health. We've taken the physical, chemical to a very high degree. But mentally, I think most of us are deficient. We can't admit it because everybody wants to be the best. Says, it's not me. What do you mean me? Who is the me? Part of it is an animal who just emerged from worst, and the other one is light of lights, which I cannot do anything other than be in gratitude to. So the no pleasure comes without a tinge or a touch of pain, even if it is nothing other than it will end. So that itself is a cause of concern, worry, and pain.
Sheikh, this is so wonderful and interesting that I am the sufferer, as well as I'm the one who also inflicts suffering on others. So basically, you're saying that if I take responsibility of not inflicting suffering on others, and if we all do that, then we will have a much better world to live in. So there is a whole lot of individual responsibility on myself. And so once one is aware of that, but one is then continuously, because everyone else is inflicting pain and the nafs is dominant, and grab and more money, eat, and take over. There is nothing going to happen, and I'm going to die. There is no accountability. How do I, as a person who is being bombarded with this kind of missiles from all sides on myself, how do I maintain my sanity? And I mean, how can I live a life really not consumed by the misery that comes either from within me or the sadness that is inflicted on me by the environment? How can I prolong and sustain the state of mind without being continuously miserable, angry, sad, despondent, under infliction from the external environment, really?
Where are you in deep sleep?
Good one, Sheikh. Now
you're not going to be afflicted by suffering. If you are deep sleep, I can stand there next to you and tell you are an awful person, you're hated, you've caused so much damage, you've eaten so many tons of food. What have you? You don't respond, you're still asleep.
Right.
You switched off that receptivity to these things. So why can't we do that when we are alive? I mean, I've learned in my own life to easily switch off. And everybody thinks I'm still there listening to their thing. It's not rudeness. It's just that I can't contribute any goodness. I can't do anything helpful or useful. So you just switch off. Don't have the receptibility. In truth, also, there is no otherness. If you do good, it's for yourself. If you do damage, it's for yourself. The others are mirrors. So they're helpful. Say, oh, look, I've affected so many others. But there is no otherness in truth. There's oneness. Otherness are multiplicities of oneness. Everybody was the same. That's why we are at each other's throats. But what we really want is a condition of state, of joyfulness that's not due to anything. If it is due to anything, it will come and go like things do. But if it is true to my innermost, if you are not joyful by yourself, you will only inflict suffering upon others and yourself, because that outer pleasure and so on will pass. And you don't like it. So you start complaining. It's quite stupid. It's childish. So we need to grow up a bit along the spiritual ladder of knowing that in truth, you are a spirit and everybody else has the same spirit, but they have different levels of covers on it. Therefore, they may spiritually not be evolved as much, aware as much, constantly in reference to the absolute truth within the heart at once. That's all. So it's all work in progress. That's why the more you wake up to the truth within you, the more you understand the others, and the more you appear as though you are tolerant of the others. It's just one of those things.
And Sheikh, now, this, from what you said, really, this is an individual journey. We're not here to sort out the universe or the world, but it is really an individual journey that each one of us has to go on. There is a map, but at the end of the day, we are responsible for ourselves to seek this enlightenment from within us.
Correct. Totally. You see, the intellect or the zone of what you call the mind of Adam reached a point in evolution, whatever hundreds of thousands of years ago, that it could do that, reflection upon reflection upon reflection. So the Quran says, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ بَصِيرًا. You are now a witnesser upon yourself. وَلَوْ أَلْقَى مَعَاذِيرَهُ. But you give all kinds of excuses because of the nafs. Anything that exists wants to perpetuate itself because its origin is eternal, perpetual. So you give excuses, not now, later, let me. It's the nafs. The nafs is a shadow of the real self, the real soul, or yourself in truth. But the shadow actually reflects the light. So for a child, you say, watch yourself, you're too egotistic, you're too bombastic. But as you grow older, you find that nasty ego was actually a friendly one because it made you, it caused you suffering, it caused you bad reputation, what. So it was helpful for you to understand it and get into the real you, which is the eternal light that's not confined to a place or time, which is your own soul. That's all. It doesn't mean that you won't have any more of an ego, but it won't afflict you. It won't take hold of you. That's why if you see people who are emotionally immature or whatever, the next day they send you a message, please excuse me, I was beside myself when I kicked you or shouted at you. As I said, beside yourself? No. How can you beside myself? Meaning I was not aware in that moment. That means I was not focused on my presence in that moment. That means that's all what it is. So until you find there is only presence, the present moment is infinite. Once you ride on that, then you are already within the infinite. And then you will have the best of times in this world, readily available, cheerfully available, celebratorily available to leave your body and mind. So it becomes the ultimate, wonderful, if you like, celebration that everyone will be given. Otherwise, it becomes fear and of death that nobody talks about. In the West, until 50 odd years ago, it was a taboo to talk about death because people cannot lose themselves in their mess of illusion of having in a party. If you really wanted to bust a party, go there and start talking about death. They'll probably bust you before you. We are, in essence, celestial beings that is alive, not subject to change, going through a journey on earth for a while to enjoy seeing the links between dualities, pluralities, multiplicities. They're all linked together, emanating from one, returning to one.
Sheikh, this is this is a question that has really what you said is brought up this question about the infiniteness of time and space, but looking at the context of time and space and human Adamic consciousness and creation, and the physicality and the size of the universe versus the insignificance of the human being. I know I've asked this question several times before. Comparing the lifespan of a human being, 80, 90, 100, whatever, 60, 70, and then the billions of trillions of light years of what we know of the known universe, and we have no idea what the multiverse is all about, and the 70% dark matter and all. It is difficult to understand that this little, small, insignificant half-life quark-type existence of an individual human being has any relevance in this large physical universe that we see. So, please help us understand what this is. We are just...
It's called mental gymnastics. Big. What is big? Small. What is small? The minutia. What is it? Go into the atom. You come with the concept of quarks or anything. Yeah. It's endless. In its infinitesimality. Also, the vastness is the same. And we are in the middle. That's why, again, the Quran says, you are middle people. We are between the infinite, big, and the infinite time. it is no longer space and time is relevant. Your soul is not subject to space and time. Its echo is, its shadow is, its ego is, not the light itself. It is a cosmic light that is not, so the mind cannot understand that. The mind is the intermediary between the cosmic reality of the you, which is a spirit or a soul, and the physical manifestation of it on this tiny little earth, which happened 4.5 billion years ago, as it is twirling around, few bits and things collected together because of one of the, if you like, characteristics of the physical laws, a bit of gravity, a bit of this. So it became this tiny little earth. It is, all of it is metaphors. You and I and everyone is a metaphor of how the absolute and the relative are inseparable. And that is because of what we call grace of the absolute. We call it grace of God. It's a nice word to use. We don't know what it means. It's God's grace. Fine. But it gives you out of this dilemma of mental arithmetic and measurement. That's only useful for simple things. How much salt did you put? Show me the spoon. You know, in our country, whenever you had a recipe, they say according to appropriate amount of salt. Show me what's appropriate. I mean, they show you their hand. The small hand of an old lady in the kitchen was a quarter of the hand of. So it's only approximate. We are truly approximate beings. That's why give me exact what. The same event will be interpreted by whoever watched it differently. There's no exactitude. Exact is, so we have to accept our limitations. We are only here in an approximate way, going through air, water, solid. All of them are the same. They all connect. Look at the amazing relationship between these amazing materials, air, water, fire, and earth. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Fire is there already, but doesn't manifest until there is enough reception for it, welcoming for it, heat in a tiny amount with something that it can consume. So it becomes alive. Fire is alive, like the soul. Spirits are there all the time, but they don't occur. Suddenly, if you turn around, you find another 20-year-old, fellow behind you, said, "I'm your brother." It's quite shocking. No, it has to have the preparation of a womb or this, and the poor woman for 9 months, she carries this, it's on and on and on. Has to find an appropriate, if you like, landing spot. Same thing, everything else. Same thing with teaching. If you are now in a state of good receptibility as a landing spot for the truth behind the nature of human being and the purpose of our life. Therefore, we have an interesting connection, transmission and reception and exchanges. If you are not receptive, if you are not interested, it becomes yet another boring skill. We need all those skills. You need all kinds of training for how to do this. But we're talking about something that touches the earth, but emanating from, if you like, heavenly realities, which we only know very little about.
Sheikh, subhanallah, first, I really love that fact that, everything has to have a sequence of actions to evolve, and suddenly you look around and you find a 20-year-old brother. I think that, but really, Sheikhna, with what you're really saying is we should be so grateful that we've even been given this minuscule opportunity to be able to see at least a part and experience a part of this wonderful divine light. And I mean, we couldn't have had this opportunity, but we do. And those of us who are miserable and are unable to seek that inner light within us will always live in misery. But there are others like you and many others you mentioned in your book who are able to seek this inner light within them and live this life of total bliss, however short or, insignificant it may be in the larger context of things.
Yes, but most people also do have touches of pleasure and a bit of a good time.
Right.
Everybody's seeking that, the good life. We are all seekers of that. The only thing is that sometimes the price you pay for it is, this is a killer, impossible. Or it comes immediately with bitterness and regrets and suffering. What we want is goodness and joyfulness that hasn't got such a heavy price. We have, as human beings, over the last 100-odd years, become too brutal. We're too insensitive. We have killed all of the whatever indigenous people, whatever respect they had in their own culture for life, for God, we brutalized them. We imprison, we look at our millions of the people in Africa that we have taken as slaves, and all because we had not enough, mechanical, power, machines, and so on. So we use human beings and abuse them. Look what we did, within 20 years, what happened in the Congo. How many, and on and on and on. And we had no reverence. The result of it is now. We have no reverence at all for anything. We as human beings collectively have trashed everything and therefore trashed ourselves and trashed our potential. It's all trash, trash, trash. This is what it is. That's why everybody is in the mall to be more and more distracted and be mollified. That's what it is now. But thank God, look at God's mercy, look at nature's mercy. This tiny little thing unseen, which is still morphing and changing, COVID-19, whatever it is, in order to give us a bit of a reminder. What have you been doing? What is all this for? What have you been collecting all this stuff? Especially people who are working in the corporate world. Go and look in their cupboards. Look at their clothes, look at their shoes, look at all the fancy, and they all look in the mirror and say, no, this is shame upon us. And then we talk about don't waste too much, don't we? We are the ones. We have trashed others, therefore we are trashed ourselves. And whether we'll come out of it with a bit of life or something, or whether it's the last, period of extinction, one can never really tell. All of which we can say is that business is not as usual. For hundreds, if not thousands of years, people were considerate of the neighbors, of society, of community. What do they say? Care for the poor, serve, help, be accountable, be transparent, enjoy your life. But it became within less than 100 years, enjoyment and respect became entirely based on power. And power, the most, if you like, flexible way of power is to have instant money. So within an instant, you can have billions, you can trash a country or two or five. With $20 billion, you can paralyze several of countries in the world. You can paralyze them by whatever, on and on and on. It is inconceivable. It's completely out of balance. For money for it to have been for small little exchanges, and the rest would have been, again, sharing, caring, giving. We've lost all of that. Now we have a romantic notion of the nice family, and we give it family values. What does it mean, family values? Everybody stabbing everybody else in every family. Look at it. But we're not willing to face it because it is too ugly, too vicious, too violent. Never mind, now we are all right, alhamdulillah. Look, everything is scattered. No more family value, no more human value, no value. All of it is about the price of everything and not knowing the value of anything. And we are all in it. So that's the issue. So that is, if you like, a major tragedy from which we may emerge having a bit of a smile of this miserable comedy. And then possibly after that, we begin to reflect upon our own behavior. That's it.
Sheikhna, this is so scary, from what you say, and I want to kind of transform from here into into an aspect of enlightenment, which is very interesting that you say, because really the mother is the primary vehicle for us coming into this world and then nurturing us. And while Sufism is generally seen as a male preserved, but you say to the contrary, and that's very interesting quote that you says in the book. You say women are far more receptive to accepting a path, a teaching, or a tariqah, and are tenacious in persevering. Men are the reverse, reluctant to take a path and easily disposed to leave it. The idea of Sufi women is a misnomer. All women are Sufis. So is there hope?
Again, these are words that I use in a book. Also a book is something that one enjoys doing it. And in this book in particular, I was really much more of a communicator. It was really much more Muneera's work. But the truth of it is that these words are not that precise. I consider actually the issue of faith in women far more. They have more faith, more trust, more sensitivity to the unseen, to intuition. You can't, if you don't have a strong aspect of intuition, actually connect so well and so much sacrifice to this little blob of meat that arrived, and all your life becomes focused to make sure that that life in this baby continues. It's not a small thing. Men walk around and so on, and he says, "This is my son." But we've done very little. I've done very little. Anyway. So the issue is that women are more receptive, more connected to the unseen. Right. Their biological, if you like, propensity is there. Their sacrificing as such potential is more. But men have a stronger, if you like, possible intellectual capacity or other aspects that complement the other side. But if a man does not discover the woman or the mother in him, then he is also not complete, and vice versa. So a woman needs to go past the early stages of, conception and bringing to life other creatures and so on, until such time, then they will be even more effective, as it's proven after thousands of years of being patriarchal. The last few decades, you see the amazing quality of women who are come into political leadership even, because they've got greater capacity for tolerance, justice, and, generosity and all of the others. They're not as calculating as men are because of the business training and because all of the other so-called education we've been going through, especially in the last 2-3 decades. It's done us in. We become little calculating machine. This is better. Immediately better means more money or more position, more potential. This is what it is. How do you know? More can be worse. So we are very insensitive. And I think with all these lockdowns, with all of the other things that nature is providing for us, we may be a bit more aware of the wastage, of the abusiveness, of all the environmental degradation we are bringing about. I am the environment. If I cause it outside, I'm causing it inward, but not that noticeable maybe. We are not separate from the outside. Life began in a semi-permeable membrane, gives in and takes in, breathes out. Now we're hanging on air, but we are not sensitive to all of it. That's why we have to be careful about the quality of air, quality about all of the other things around us, the electromagnetic fields, all of the other pollutions that we are causing. So we have become too gross, and therefore the animal in us, in a way, has become more dominant, and it will not work because we are at a stage in our evolution. We need to listen to the physical side, chemical side, mental side. Mental health is going to be a huge issue. We need to listen to our soul. We have to listen to our heart and connect all of it and don't deny it. Look, many big events in the world has taken place because of the heart. Take one simple issue of the beginning of the crack of the enslavement history we have, how much were abused slaves and so on. And there were a number of issues that slaves were vital for that industry to grow, particularly, for example, sugar, and which the Europeans loved it, the sweet tooth they had. So sugar became a big thing to have it with tea, we have it with it, and cakes. But then it was also the sensibility of women who didn't like sugar to be encouraged, to be bought, because it increased enslavement. And it was sensibility. It was an inner thing. It was an emotional thing. So I also think a lot of the emotional thing in us will rise now to stop this abusiveness we have of the earth and the earth resources, and killing everybody else who we don't know, Aborigine here, Aborigine, or later feel so guilty and bring them all out into the boardroom. Poor people, they're wandering in the wilderness, enjoying life. Now we have to bring them to the boardroom because now we are a minister in this cabinet. Another atrocity.
What havoc, Sheikh. Sheikh, when we talk about this overwhelming domination of the nafs collectively across human society, we're really somebody like me, it kind of sees this very doomsday Armageddon type of scenario where, this greed, this hypocrisy, this accumulation of wealth, this desire for more power, with absolutely no sense of community and family that you mentioned earlier, scares us. And yet you say that there is hope in this tremendous era of darkness and oppression and enslavement that COVID-19 has touched us so deeply that we will start to look within us. So what is the path for the enlightenment seeker in this world now, today?
To be honest, to have trust and do what one's utmost and be cheerful. It's like a woman who's pregnant, about to give birth. How do you know what it is? We have tested, we have tried, they've given whatever it is, but you can never be absolutely certain. We are at the point, I think, globally, for a new era. And a new era is not going to be the continuation of the past. I think within the next 5 to 10 years, there will emerge many more younger, educated, quality human beings who will understand the map we are trying to share, or the sketches we are sharing with each other. That you must have an outer life, you must have an occupation, you must have a skill, you must have a material, contribution. But more than that, you must have an emotional balance and goodness. And more than that, you must have a spiritual, delightful cheerfulness. And if you like, it's not optimism, it is not just, it's beyond. All of these have to go together. Otherwise, you will be depressed and will bring about depression. Doesn't work. We are obsessed with life. Life is eternal. The soul is eternal. So that has to be celebrated. And when somebody dies, we have to celebrate that they are relieved from all the other challenges of keeping this health and this thing and that. Fine, these are the challenges everybody goes through. But it's boring. You need to be truly liberated, and that means your own soul, your own spirit, God's light in you. And that's universal.
Sheikha, this is so interesting, and one of the questions that kind of relates to this is, I mean, in your book you mentioned several 100 plus, and many of them were at that time alive, and some of them still are. There's one particular gentleman, Sufi Barkat, that you speak with a lot of emotion and love. Please dwell on Sufi Barkat and why he was so deeply, he touched you.
It was real, in the sense that he grew up in, I think, a very wholesome environment in India. And then he was in the army. And what he told me more than once actually, he said the British relieved him from this army because the report against him and for his relief was that they said he is God intoxicated. He is not reliable. So that he was one of those beings who, through Islam, through the love of the prophetic way, intense love of Muhammad, he began to, I think, imbibe that Muhammadity. And some of his followers written enormous books. I mean, I got at least 3 or 4 of them, heavy, 800 pages on the qualities of Muhammad. And because they loved him, so the books came out also very transmitted. He had imbibed that. He was a Muhammadi being, and that in this earth, not of this earth, his first consideration was whether he is just, he is correct, whether it's appropriate, whether it is timely, so he was automatically that being, you see. And of course, he knew his Quran well. So by the time I met him, he was already going through long periods of silence. He was taking a vow of silence year after year. I think somebody told me that he had been in silence for 20 odd years when I first met him. But yes, and we had wonderful conversations, aloud and so on. And so if somebody asked him what, he would say, I'm still in silence. What's that to do with you? That sort of, he was a real being. He was alive in that moment. And so for me, he was one of the very few real transformed being in this earth, not funny, not fancy, nothing with this and that. And yet completely within that infinitude of life itself. So that was, and there are others, but he was fully there. And he occupied himself by serving orphans. Earlier on, he had about 400 of them in the same location, and I've been there with them several times, enjoying them, singing together, writing. His old rickety typewriter there, every now and then he would just run onto it and write a few things and feed them and take rest and do salat. And he had no concern when I met him and subsequent at all for any protocol. It was that correct, on earth, walking barefoot and truly singing the joy of life. That's what it was. It was contagious. That's why whoever came there, that joy of life touched them and touched the innermost in them, which had in it, if you like, the sparks of joy of life. And that's it. And when you have a few thousands people like that around, the world will change. At the moment, you have investigators, people showing us how rotten we have been, how badly we have treated animals and creatures and extinctions and all. But in time will come also others will do their best in a more natural way. But you need a few thousand of these people for the whole society. I grew up as a child in a community of maybe 50, 100,000 people in the town, but there were easily 5 to 10,000 of them who were completely disciplined in a totally accountable way, in a natural way. The town had no police, there were no courts, there was nothing. And yet everything functioned superbly. And when the Second World War ended, I was a toddler, I was very young. And when I heard people saying the war ended, I said, what war? But it didn't affect us. It was all self-sustaining. Caravans will come and go, nomads will buy and sell, But suddenly this so-called civilized modern thing came in with everything had to be numbered and the personal touch was lost. We became numbers and now even numbers are lost. It is all sparks in a computer. That's it. We have to read it. The Quran tells us regularly, read, iqra, iqra, iqra. Read it. If you don't read it, you are all the time blaming, claiming, and you live miserably.
Sheikhna, subhanallah. Sheikhna, I think one of the great messages that you've always said, and I've personally have the great privilege of hearing that, and you say that to Allah, you say, go and know your Quran. you don't know your Quran. And you specifically use the word your Quran. Why is that?
Because you have the essence of the Quran in your own heart. Your own soul is divine. The source of the Quran is beyond the mind to comprehend. So is the source of life. And so is the source of life in me personally. That brings about respect, reverence, and cheerfulness. I don't know anything about any of these things, but I know my limitations. I know the constraints. The body has its limitations, its needs. The mind has that, emotions. Respect them. And you are conditioned, so that's fine. And then through that conditionality, if you keep silence, you find its origin is non-conditional, is sacred, cosmic, and it is everywhere. The divine light is everywhere. There is only the divine light. And once you know that, you don't care anymore for accumulative knowledge to carry on your head, as the Quran described. It's like donkeys carrying stuff on their head.
Oh.
Information overload. You don't need. You trust. You are doing your best. You know whatever you need will come to you at the time. And if you leave your body, then another big celebration. You really rejoice.
Shikha, this departure from the body, which we call death or transition, is universally mourned. Very few celebrate this departure. Um, yes, yesterday I had a very close friend from 50 years who passed away due to COVID, and we were very depressed and disappointed to the extent I was going to mention to Abbas Bhai, maybe we can't do this talk. And then I suddenly awakened to what you had said, that really we should celebrate this transition because we're now liberated from the physical constraints of the body and are going towards our source.
Not we, it is the spirit itself.
It's the spirit itself.
Because the spirit is vast, cosmic. The soul has all the qualities of that spirit. Therefore, it has all the qualities of the divine. That's why the Quran says, and we revealed to the earlier people, Bani Israel, that if you kill one person, you've killed the whole of creation. And if you bring to life one person, you brought into life all of creation. Sameness, you see. There is no otherness, sameness. It is the soul. It's not you and I. You and I is a mixture of an animal that have emerged over billions of years and the sacred light that gives us this life, whose nature is eternal. That's it.
And it also gives us the ability to be able, in this duality, to be able to see, to experience and to know this light. Otherwise, we wouldn't.
Duality is a nice cover or a filter of cosmic unity. So we don't denounce duality. Duality is my best friend. Duality is sleep, wake, good, bad, in this body, without this body. It's wonderful. But it emanates from that cosmic oneness, which is too powerful to be known directly, like the sun. You can't see it clearly. You have to camouflage. You have to put a barrier.
Shekhra, we're so fortunate that we've actually been created to be able to experience this divine light, to be able to even sense it within us. Had we not been created, all of us, you, me, I, every Mona here, we wouldn't have had this privilege. We would be, single-minded beings who do not have the reflective mirror to be able to witness and experience this divinity within us.
If you say so, but if we were not created, we would have been with the infinite, boundless creating light itself. I don't know. So here I am here. I have no option other than wanting, driven to have fulfilled life. Fulfilled life implies less and less of the shadow, fears, anxieties, concerns, and all of the other things. But without them, also, I won't remain in the body. So I have a concern. I'd like to have reasonable health, reasonable well-beingness, and reasonable companions, and so on. So it is all celebratory, as you say.
SubhanAllah. Mona, I see you're here. Okay. Sheikhna, we're coming to the end. Mona has kind of raised the last bell. In your book, I'm just going to read a couple of sentences, and which would kind of, in my view, summarizes what we've been talking about. And you say, with enlightenment, the awakened person realizes the importance of life experiences, the need for people and leaders to wake up to the real purpose of life, to witness perfection at different levels. An ordinary wise person, while they develop compassion and tolerance, but the enlightened being understands the state of the evolving beings without disappointment. And they simply overflow with the truth of utter oneness, which emanates from the heart. The enlightened man or woman can only do what is perfect at any precise moment in their life, uniting the outer and inner dimensions of life.
It's very simple. The so-called enlightened person, or a person who is self-realized, or any other name you give, is very simple. They suffered from the shadows and the darkness of the ego, of the animal, of all of that, of fear, anxieties. We all suffered from those shadows. So if you are moving higher in the scale of, if you like, consciousness, you will have less and less of these shadows, more and more of the eternal light itself. So you have none of the usual inhibitions of fears, anxieties. What do the others say? What do they think? What if they don't love me? What if they don't honor me? What? You're not concerned about that. Your concern is one, prevailing truth, which is in you, within you, and in others right now. So you have total honesty without losing perspective. Honesty implies also the earthly, if you like, situations. Honesty is being present in the moment in a universal way. You understand, they will not understand it. So you greet them and say, thank you very much, goodbye. You're relieved from not having an audience, relieved from not having followers. You really celebrate that. So you have no sorrow, you have no regrets, but you have to read it. Prophet Muhammad himself said, early on, they were beginning to do their Jum'ah Salat. He stood up, did the adhan and so on, and few people came early on in Mecca. And then suddenly the caravan of trade had come. They used to have bells and noise, and these people were all traders. So they all left him standing alone, rushed to make a bargain before others come and offer their price. It is the lower nature of human being. The Quran says, uses one, وَتَرَكُوكَ قَائِمًا. They left you standing alone by yourself. So if it was real, the real being said, thank God, no, I don't have others around me. I can do my salat in more of a... Wow. Read it. That's it. So we have hundreds of examples in our deen like that also. Nabi Allah Ayyub, they asked him, what did you do? That you deserve this? He kept on saying, no, I gave the others whatever was the best. And eventually, suddenly the grip comes on him. So, but how did you know it is best to give others better? It's again from the same one. So what can you say? It's all from the one, to the one, by the one, unto the one. If that is not worthy of celebration, nothing is.
Wow. Sheikh, I know Mona is asking me to wrap up, but I have this one last question. Yeah, and this is something that is so wonderful for me. And you quote in the book having a vision from Shabastari, who is joined by other Sufi luminaries like Sanai, Fariduddin Attar, Conference of the Bird, Rumi, Ibn al-Arabi, saying to you, what we did was perfect for our time, but you must do something appropriate to your time and culture. How does somebody like myself and many of our listeners here, how do we find this map, this path? How do we find the right teacher and guide?
The ultimate teacher is the divine light itself. The ultimate teacher also emerges from your own heart. But you also need other guides around, especially in terms of material, physical skills. We need those people. Somebody who has spent 20 years studying certain ailment knows far more than I do, and so on. So they are specialists in different trades and different aspects in life. Now, So we are naturally inclined towards getting the best advice. The issue that you started by talking about is something very fundamental. We are all human beings now, emerging from a zone of a culture and religious practices and whatever to a new zone. What was acceptable across the board 50 years ago in different countries, in different religions, but is now almost being worn off. We're now coming to another zone with vertical responsibility to what is in your own heart. It's not just being seen in the church or in the mosque with others going and giving a donation. It's not good enough. It's going to be more and more and more and more self-awareness, awareness of awareness, awareness of awareness of awareness. And that is how the rise in consciousness is almost vertical. So I don't know the answers to anything. We are emerging into a new zone where much of what we were used to as considered to be normal, acceptable, correct is no longer. And we have to accept it. There is a governance that is beyond us. I can only trust that Allah is in charge. Maybe there will be major effect of the extinction upon us all. I don't know. All what I know is that life continues and life will appear in zillions of different ways that we could not imagine. It's not just human life that can dominate and kill everything in sight because it's not convenient for us. That is exceptionally gross and thoughtless, let alone insensitive.
Sheikhna, thank you. So, what advice would you give to someone who's going on, who wants to seek inner enlightenment, divinity? What is the first few steps these people want to take?
To be honest as though you are to yourself, within yourself, not how the others see you. Honest. What was the inner motive for that? To show off, to appear as being a great teacher, or what? These are roles you are playing, and they camouflage something else. What is the true desire you have? What is the true hope you've had? To be acknowledged, to become powerful, to become given whatever. What is the honesty? Honest. And then you find there is no such thing as the so-called you. That honesty brings about the real light in you. The second one is trust. You've done what you can. What does that? We'll leave the body. Collectively, the whole thing will come to a big collapse. What's wrong with that? It will come to that anyway. So be honest, trust, and as long as you are alive, do your best. These are the three things. Honest, unconditional. Trust in that it's beyond you. What you and I are given of power is tiny. Act correctly according to that which you are given. And the rest is, as long as you are alive, see what is it you can do that's useful, helpful, physically, chemically, mentally, emotionally, to others, and so on. Because in truth, there is no otherness. There's only you, multiplied in different forms. If you do good, it's for yourself. If you do wrong, it's against yourself. That's what the Quran says.
And really, honesty and trust is perhaps the greatest weapon, if I may say so, in controlling the nafs.
The nafs is your friend. As a child, it appears to be nasty. Later on, it's your best friend.
Yes, it is. It
harms you. So you don't come near here.
It is. Thank you, Sheikhna. Thank you very much. I'm most humbled, most privileged, most honored. Thank you, Sheikhna. So,
thank
Allah
you.
is the giver. We're all takers. The source is one, and the receiving ends are infinite beyond our imagination. It includes the viruses and the bacteria.
SubhanAllah.
SubhanAllah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, both of you. Thank you, Syed Mehdi, for eliciting these wonderful elucidations on the haqa'iq of our condition, of being human, of having at our hearts this incredible light. Shaykh Fadhlalla, you have a real gift of being able to kind of simplify things and make us dive straight to the essence. Thank you so much. Jazakallah Haidar. And if any of you wish to purchase this book, it is available as a book and also as an ebook. You can buy it and read it on your device. Bismillah, thank you so much. And inshallah, we may revisit this space if we have more questions arising out of these two conversations, inshallah. We're very happy, Shaykh Fadhlalla, that you've agreed to give us another session, inshallah.
Thank
you so much.
Thank you.
I'll let you have the last word, Haider.
No, I just want to say immense thank you. Gratitude, Sheikhna. I mean, you've touched my heart, but I'm sure, touched many, many, many more who would have the honor and privilege of listening to this wonderful insight and gems from your side. Thank you so much. Shukran. Alhamdulillah.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Until the next time. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.